Yo, what is good? Today I'm going to be putting Michael Jordan in the modern NBA and seeing if he is still as good as he was in the 90s. Because he was the greatest of all time in the 90s, so maybe he'll still be the greatest of all time in the modern NBA, but we'll see by watching this video. I really hope you guys like this video. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe if you enjoy it. So, yeah.
The Chicago Bulls pick Michael Jordan of the University of North Carolina.
The Bulls had a pretty good start to their first NBA season with Michael Jordan. They were the third seed and had a record of 49-33, which is pretty solid. Michael Jordan did end up winning Rookie of the Year, averaging 22, 4, and 5 on pretty solid efficiency, except for the three-pointer. Michael Jordan also ended up making All-NBA third team, which is pretty impressive in his rookie season. He also made All-Rookie first team, obviously, because he won Rookie of the Year. In the playoffs, the Bulls were the third seed and they played the sixth seed, but sadly they did end up losing to the sixth seed. But they did have an all-around great first season with Michael Jordan. In Michael Jordan's second season in the modern NBA, the Bulls did even better. They were the first seed and finished with a record of 61-21. Jordan has now won his first playoff series in the modern NBA as a Bull, and he did it in only his second season. What an amazing start to the playoffs for Michael Jordan. He is putting up great numbers and just all around having a great season. In the second round of the playoffs, the Bulls went to a Game 7 against the Toronto Raptors, but did end up winning. It was a very close series, but a great milestone for Jordan. In the conference finals, sadly, the Bulls' season has come to an end. The Celtics have swept the Bulls, and now the Celtics are going to the finals. But the Bulls did have a great season, and Jordan finally made his first conference finals. In Michael Jordan's third season in the modern NBA, the Bulls did slightly better. They had a record of 63-19 and were once again the 1 seed. In the first round of the playoffs, the Chicago Bulls played the Atlanta Hawks, and they did end up sweeping them. In the second round of the playoffs, the Chicago Bulls played the Indiana Pacers, and once again ended up sweeping them. Well, not them, but they ended up sweeping again. In the conference finals, the Chicago Bulls played the Charlotte Hornets, and they went to a Game 7, but luckily the Chicago Bulls did end up winning and are now moving on to the finals. This series was very close and did end up going to a Game 7. We went up against the Mavericks, and they proved to be a very challenging opponent, and that's how they brought us all the way to a Game 7. But luckily, with Jordan's skill and all around a good supporting cast, we did it. In Season 4, we still did good, but we did not do as well as before. We had a record of 57-25 and were the second seed, which is still an all-around great season. In the first round of the playoffs, we went up against the New York Knicks. They were the 7th seed and we were the 2nd seed. We ended up beating them in 5 games. But it was a great season from both stars on both teams, especially Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan right now is averaging 40 in the playoffs. In the second round of the playoffs, we went up against the Washington Wizards. They are the 3rd seed and we are the 2nd seed. They are doing pretty well this season, but we ended up beating them in 5. I'm pretty surprised that Charlotte was our opponent in the conference finals because I totally thought that Cleveland was going to be our opponent because they were the 1 seed and they took the spot from us. But we ended up sweeping the Charlotte Hornets because we played them instead. In the finals, the Bulls went up against the Grizzlies. This was a pretty surprising matchup considering that last year we went up against the Mavericks. But in the conference finals, the Mavericks lost to the Grizzlies. So we ended up playing the Grizzlies instead. Luckily, we did end up beating them in 6 games. In Michael Jordan's 5th season, they had a great record of 69 and 13. They were the 1 seed. They have now gone back-to-back and repeated. So if they win the championship this year, they would have three-peated, just like Jordan did in real life, which is pretty crazy because he actually three-peated twice in real life. So he might do the same thing again. But he would have to three-peat again if he wanted to do the same thing he did in real life. In the first round of the playoffs, the Bulls went up against the Charlotte Hornets. The Bulls are the 1 seed and the Charlotte Hornets are the A seed. The Bulls ended up sweeping the Charlotte Hornets with no worries at all. In the second round of the playoffs, the Bulls once again swept their opponents. They went up against the Cavaliers, who were the 4 seed, and they are the 1 seed. This round was also no competition for the Bulls. In the conference finals of the playoffs, the Chicago Bulls beat the Washington Wizards, who are the 6 seed, and they're the 1 seed, in 5 games. It was a pretty easy round for the Bulls. In the NBA Finals, the Bulls went up against the Mavericks once again, just like they did when they won their first championship. And once again, just like they did when they won their first championship, went to a Game 7. And luckily they did end up winning once again. And Michael Jordan now has 3 titles under his belt and has officially three-peated just like he did in real life twice. Even though the Chicago Bulls only had a record of 48 and 34 and were the 3rd seed this season, which is not as good as they were before, Michael Jordan had an absolutely amazing season. Not only did he win MVP, averaging 37, 8 and 4, 2 steals, and 0.8 blocks, he had great efficiency. He also won DPOY, averaging obviously the same numbers. In the first round of the playoffs, the Chicago Bulls faced off against the Boston Celtics, who are the 6th seed, and the Chicago Bulls are the 3rd seed. The Chicago Bulls ended up beating the Celtics in 6 games. It was a pretty close round at first, but the Bulls ended up pulling away and getting the win. In the second round of the playoffs, the Chicago Bulls faced off against the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks were the 7th seed, and the Chicago Bulls were the 3rd seed. The Chicago Bulls ended up beating the New York Knicks in 5 games. This was not a very close series, and Jordan played very well during it. So now the Chicago Bulls are moving on to the conference finals. In the conference finals, the Chicago Bulls faced off against the Orlando Magic. The Orlando Magic were the 1 seed, and the Chicago Bulls were the 3 seed. even though the Orlando Magic were a higher seed, the Chicago Bulls still ended up winning in 5 games, most likely because of Michael Jordan. The Chicago Bulls have finally done it. They have now four-peated, and Jordan has kept his perfect finals record in real life and in this simulation. This went to a Game 7 and was a very close series against the Mavericks. But luckily we did end up winning and have now four-peated.
It's the NBA on 2K Sports.
I don't know how this happened, but the Chicago Bulls went from four-peating all the way down to the 7th seed. They finished with a record of only 42-40, barely above 500. Michael Jordan still played amazing even though they had this terrible season. In the play-in, we ended up beating the New York Knicks, and in the first round of the playoffs, we ended up playing against the Atlanta Hawks, who are the 2nd seed. We did end up going to a Game 7, but luckily we did end up winning. In the second round of the playoffs, we went up against the Detroit Pistons. They are the 3rd seed, and we are the 7th seed. We ended up going to 5 games, and we won pretty easily. Michael Jordan played very well, and we had a good series. I have no idea how this happened, but in the conference finals, we went up against the Brooklyn Nets, and we beat them in 5 games. They were the 5th seed, and we were the 7th seed. I don't know how, even though we're only the 7th seed, we are back in the finals. This might be the craziest season we've had all video. Somehow we went from the 7th seed all the way to the finals, and then the Mavericks, who have taken us to 7 games, I'm pretty sure every time we've played them in the finals, which is like 3 times now, and we literally sweep them. I have no idea how this happened, but, I'll take it. Yeah, so I guess the Bulls have now 5-peated, which is absolutely insane. The Bulls are finally back on top. They are back up to the 1 seed with a record of 60-22. They are actually tied with the 2nd seed. The 2nd seed also has a record of 60-22, but they gave the 1st seed to the Bulls, and I'm really happy they did. Michael Jordan did win MVP this season, but I accidentally forgot to screenshot it. But, yeah. There's the proof. He's first on All-NBA first team, so yeah, he did win MVP, and he averaged amazing numbers. In the first round of the playoffs, the Chicago Bulls went up against the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics are the 8th seed, and the Chicago Bulls are the 1 seed. The Chicago Bulls ended up sweeping the Boston Celtics, and it was not a close series at all, and Michael Jordan played absolutely amazing. In the second round of the playoffs, the Chicago Bulls went up against the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat are the 4th seed, and the Chicago Bulls are the 1 seed. They ended up going to a Game 7, but the Chicago Bulls ended up winning. In the conference finals, the Chicago Bulls went up against the Washington Wizards. The Washington Wizards are the 7th seed, and the Chicago Bulls are the 1 seed. They ended up going to 5 games, but the Chicago Bulls ended up winning. For the first time in this entire simulation, the Chicago Bulls are playing the Clippers in the finals. They went to a Game 7, but the Chicago Bulls ended up winning and have now six-peated, which I don't think has ever been done before unless Bill Russell did it when he won his 11 rings. But yeah, and also Michael Jordan has now tied his rings in real life in the simulations. Michael Jordan won Finals MVP, averaging 29, 5, 5, 1, 0.9 on good efficiency. I think he definitely deserved it. The Bulls finished the season with a pretty good record of 52-30. They were the 1 seed, but the Magic were very close behind, only 1 game away. In the first round of the playoffs, the Chicago Bulls went up against the Milwaukee Bucks. The Chicago Bulls are the 1 seed and the Milwaukee Bucks are the 8th seed. They went to 5 games, but the Chicago Bulls ended up winning the series. In the second round of the playoffs, the Chicago Bulls went up against the Indiana Pacers, and they went to 6 games, but the Chicago Bulls ended up winning. In the conference finals, the Chicago Bulls went up against the Washington Wizards, and they won in 6 games. In the NBA Finals, the Chicago Bulls went up against the Dallas Mavericks. They went to 6 games, but the Chicago Bulls ended up winning. They have now 7-peated, and Jordan has surpassed his ring total in real life. This is a huge achievement for Jordan, and after hitting this achievement, Jordan has now decided to retire with probably a better career than his real life one. The only thing that he did worse was MVPs, and that's because Luka stole them all.